Hey guys, so this week we're going to talk about keeping the focus on God instead of on ourselves. A verse I'd like you to read is from 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, and I'm going to summarize it. It says, "In the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, proud, arrogant, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power." So there's a term called spiritual narcissism, which basically means that the focus of a person's spirituality is primarily on the individual and not on God or God's will. So we may ask questions like, did I like the preacher's message? Or how did it affect me? Or does it apply to me? What programs and activities does this church have for me? Or on the worship team, how was the worship team today? Did I like their song selections? The late Dr. Robert E. Weber of the Institute for Worship Studies says that spirituality becomes narcissistic when one becomes fascinated with his or her own journey and gives priority to self-reflection. We can see this even within the worship team when we start asking questions like, how did you like the worship today? Or how was my vocal or guitar or drum solo? Getting feedback is important, but we should really be clear on why we're asking these kind of questions. Is it for our own growth or is it for our own pleasure and ego? Instead, we should be asking questions like, would my worship be pleasing to God? Or did I worship with all my might? Or did our worship lead people to experience God and have a closer connection with Him? We sometimes look for audience approval and appreciation instead of focusing on if true worship is occurring. Worship goes beyond our temporary feelings. If during our worship we can marvel at God and who He is and how wonderful He is, then our worship is meaningful. This is an active process and it should occur every time during worship. So an example of someone losing focus on God is King Saul. He was the first chosen king of Israel, selected by God Himself in 1 Samuel chapter 9. But his arrogance got the best of him and he sought to expand his kingdom and to please his followers. In 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 12 it says, he set up a monument in his own honor. And when you read 1 Samuel chapter 15, you see a very interesting story that happens. God told him to completely destroy the Amalekites. But what did he end up doing? To please himself and to please his men, they actually kept all the goods and kept the king alive as well. So he didn't seek God in his decisions, but he justified it. When Samuel asked him what happened, he said, I kept all the good things and I kept all the animals to sacrifice to God. So in his mind, he thought he was doing the right thing. And I often wondered about this. Weren't his intentions in the right place? He still wanted to offer the sacrifices. But if you think about it, it's not really what happened. He wanted to please man more than be obedient to God. He may have thought his own intentions were honorable, but his heart was not right. And God knows our heart and our intentions. So what are your intentions when you're on stage or on the worship team? Is our heart in the right place when we're on stage or doing all the different ministries and we're worshiping God? Our focus must always stay on God, not on ourselves or even on the team. 1 Samuel chapter 15:23 says that arrogance is like the evil of idolatry. So you see, arrogance and narcissism is idolatry because what? We're focusing on ourselves. All right? So I know this is kind of a heavy topic, but I wanted to really just send out this reminder that, what we do is so important. What we do is so vital to the church and to the ministries that we all do. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on God at all times during our worship. And not, at any time, we don't lose sight of that and try to focus on our own selves. Okay? So it's very easy to focus on ourselves, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So here's a reflection question. What steps can we take to make sure we can keep our focus on God? So take a few minutes to discuss what can we do. Again, if it's intentionally or unintentionally, most of the time it's probably unintentionally, but we want to make sure that we stay focused on God and not focusing on what's happening around us or focusing on ourselves. So what steps can we take to make sure we keep our focus on God? All right? Hope this was a good one for you guys. I'll talk to you guys next week. God bless.